Hey yo, what is up? Today I will show you my current mice setup and we will compare the ATK F1 Pro Max against it. There are some good things and there are some bad things, but some things you just have to experience yourself to find out if you like them or you hate them. Now, I got my ATK F1 Pro Max on the 12th of July, just over a week ago. So I've been putting in my time to get a feel for the new shape. In my first impression video, I compared it to the shape of the Ninjutso Sora V2 because of its similar small sized shape. Today I will rate this mouse with my daily drivers and we'll decide which one stays and which one goes. The other three mice here are my daily drivers. Having three mice as daily drivers is actually not practical because I can't keep three mice. I can only use one at a time and maximum two, maybe one in reserve. But having three mice is already too much. But you know, let's talk about it. The first mouse I want to talk about is the R1 SE Plus. Now in all reality, the R1 SE Plus is my main mouse, and why is because this shape suits my hand very much. The clicks feel really nice. They're not the greatest. They're not as nice as the Pro or the Pro Max. But the R1 SE Plus, I think they're using Huano black with white dots. They're fine, they work well for me. This mouse is just my beast. It's a daily driver, it's very good. And I like it very much. If you compared it to the R1 Pro Max, it is very different in shape and size, even though it may look almost the same. The R1 SE Plus is actually a rear hump concentrated mouse, while the ATK is slightly forward hump, right? It's kind of like a back hump, but it is not all the way back like the R1 SE Plus or the rest of this Sora or the Endgame Gear, which are also rear hump mouse. So in my hand, the R1 SE Plus pushes right to the back and it feels really comfortable. I feel here the side of my palms are having a good grip on this mouse and it just feels comfortable on my fairly large hand. I have 21 by 12 hands, so this works really well for me. Compared to the ATK is more pointed at the back here. So instead of pushing into the sides, it pushes into the middle, and it is kind of a smaller mouse for me. So the R1 SE Plus, a different feel. I still prefer this shape over the ATK F1 Pro Max. If I'm being honest, the R1 SE Plus is just a better shape for me, even though it does not have coating like the F1 Pro Max. So R1 SE Plus definitely is staying. Now the next two mouses are my Sora V2 and the Endgame Gear. These are both very different shapes. When I did my initial impression of the ATK F1, I compared it to the Sora and not the R1 SE because the Sora is actually the closest relative to the ATK F1 Pro Max in terms of the shape. They are both similar in size. However, in the hand, the F1 Pro Max is actually slightly smaller, again because of that pointed rear hump that pushes into the middle, as opposed to the Sora, which has slightly wider butt cheeks that pushes to the side. So the Sora is actually a better fit for me compared to the X1. But in terms of overall feel, it feels like the X1 is giving me better comfort and better feedback for a small mouse. And why is that? When I clearly enjoy the back hump of the Ninjutso Sora V2 more than I enjoy the back hump of the F1 Pro Max. The reason is because of these comfort grooves. The comfort grooves on the F1 Pro Max is much more severe and pronounced. You can see the F1 Pro Max has a deeper comfort groove, a deeper cut into the M1 and M2, and for me this is induces a little bit more confidence. I feel like my M1 and M2 is locked in and it just feels great right there. Now comparing the actuations, they're both using Omron opticals, but these two mice are tensioned differently. The Sora V2 has a sharper feel, less pre-travel, a little bit of post-travel, but very much less pre-travel. It actuates almost instantly. Very nice implementation and click feeling on my copy. And on the ATK F1, the click feeling is almost identical to the R1 Pro and the R1 Pro Max. The tensioning on the M1 and M2 buttons is kind of, it has that little bit of a springy feeling like you find on the R1 Pro and R1 Pro Maxes. It's not better or worse than the Ninjutso Sora V2, but it is a different feeling. It is an acquired taste, I would say. Some people might not like it, some people will like it. I do not mind it, I like it. They are both different and I like both of them actually equally. The side buttons are located in almost the identical position, but they are shaped a little bit more differently. On the F1 you can clearly see there is more of a crescent shape, while the Ninjutso Sora V2 is a straighter orientation. However, the Ninjutso Sora has kind of like a sculptured edge. As you can see on the edges here, they are slightly lower, and then the middle part is slightly higher. I think you kind of get that on the ATK F1 as well. The front or the back is kind of like almost flush to the body, while the middle of the button, the middle parts where they join, is kind of higher, a bit like the endgame gear OP1we is more extreme, because the endgame gear, you can see the profile, the side profile, the endgame gear is really extreme, really flat on the back and front. In the middle part of the buttons, they are much higher. So in terms of side buttons, the endgame gear wins out of these three mice. But we're done with the Sora. Now we continue with the endgame gear. The endgame gear is my third most used mouse, my third main mouse. Well, I can't say it's my main mouse anymore because I haven't been using it quite a lot ever since the Ninjutso Sora showed up, because the Ninjutso Sora is giving me everything the endgame gear isn't, which is the ultra light, nice spammable clicks, very responsive. It's just a nicer, even though it's slightly wider as in terms of the grips, slightly wider than the endgame gear, but it just does it for me. For a small mouse, this is very impressive, and because of that I was neglecting the endgame gear OP1we, which for a month or two was my small mouse fix. This was a very nice mouse. It is still a very nice mouse. If you don't have a lot of mouses to compare it with, the OP1we is actually a great, fantastic mouse. But if you have a lot of mice like me, you compare and you nitpick, and you realize that there are some things that the OP1we isn't very good in. Number one are those optical switches in M1 and M2. They are absolutely terrible. Terrible. If you compare them to a Ninjutso Sora, it is certainly better than the opticals on the G Pro Superlight. Much nicer than the G Pro Superlight. But once the Sora showed up and they gave you, and it showed you how a nice optical implementation can be, then you begin to see, oh, okay, the OP1we optical switches aren't that great over here. But out of these three mice, the one I use the most is the R1 SE Plus. So this is definitely staying. The Sora V2, I feel like it is competing with the ATK F1, which means the endgame gear OP1we is definitely being neglected and should go straight into storage. So between the ATK and the Ninjutso Sora V2, I would probably opt to keep the ATK F1. So this is going to be my choice moving forward. I think having two mice as my main and backup, or as my main and my intense gaming session mouse, these two would be a nice fix. But remember, I also have the X1, and the X1 is actually a better, more suitable size for my larger hand. So again, I'm still going to end up with three mice, probably in this orientation, which is going to be the R1 SE Plus as my main, and then the Viper at home or the X1 Pro as my gaming mouse, and then the ATK F1 Pro as my backup mouse. I think moving forward, that's what's going to happen. But yeah, if you wanted to know how I feel about the F1 versus my three main mice, this is how I am rating them. I feel like I'm still gonna keep my R1 SE Plus. Maybe the Sora and endgame gear has to move into retirement homes or go into storage or sell them or whatever. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, and this is my breakdown on the new F1 Pro Max versus my current lineup. Thanks for watching. I will see you on the next video. Bye bye.